Hey everyone, my name is Chloe and welcome to this week's weekly wrap-up. So I am really liking this weekly format of updating you guys on what I have been reading and what's going on in my bookish life. And so if you guys are liking it, let me know. But this week has been a great reading week. Things have been going good. So I am going to talk about the middle grade that I read either by myself or with my kids. Then I'll talk about the adult books. I will have those linked down below, but we've got 5 middle grade and 5 adult, I think, to talk about. So let's get into it. So the first one we read was Fractions Equal Trouble by Claudia Mills. So this is her series. Claudia Mills, we have fallen in love with lately. And she has this Math Equals Trouble series. And this follows a little boy named Wilson, I think. And the first book is multiplication equals trouble, or like 5 times 7 or 7, I don't know, equals trouble. And it's a kid trying to learn multiplication. And now it's the same kid trying to learn fractions. And he has to go to a tutor. So he's really insecure about that. And he kind of keeps secrets from his best friend out of shame and embarrassment. And then he realizes that he doesn't need to be ashamed. He doesn't need to be embarrassed. We all have different learning strengths and weaknesses. So this is a really fun book. We also talk a lot about, it talks a lot about math, but not in a way that's like textbooky or that the kids are like, oh great, a educational book, because it's not that. It's just a very realistic portrayal of this kid trying to learn something that's really hard for him. Love this book. It's only the duology. There's only the 2 of them, but I wish she would write more. Then we have a series so we went to our old favorite library that we used to go to all the time, and it has got the best kids section and kids graphic novels, and they had 2 different scavenger hunts going on all around the library, like the kids section of the library. And so we did both of those, and we ended up finding some fun books as we were there. So this Ellie McDoodle is the first in the series. Or this Have Pen Will Travel is the first in a series, and it is a diary / graphic novel. So it is like a illustrated diary, I guess. And I read this independently because there's quite a few books in the series, maybe 4, 5, 6, I don't know. And I thought this would be something my daughter would like, but I really wanted to try it out first. And so this one is about Ellie. Her parents are going on vacation, and so they leave her and her little brother with her aunt and uncle. She does not get along with her aunt and uncle or any of her cousins, and they're all going camping. Ellie is horrible to them. She is so ungrateful and such a jerky little kid. And I really did not like her at all. Didn't like this book. I mean, there is a time where all the kids get stuck in the wilderness and then they have to fight for survival, whatever. And so they come to appreciate each other, but that was not enough to redeem it. However, I thought I'm going to try the next one, which is Ellie McDoodle, New Kid in School, and see if maybe it was just that context. And I'm happy to say this one was better. So again, it's like the graphic diary, and she is a new kid in school, and she's much more humble in this one and much more a normal kid, less bratty. She keeps this diary the whole time, and in the first one, she's talking about how she's spying on people, whereas this one, it's more of a traditional diary, and I like that better. And so she is a new kid in school, and her class, for whatever reason, gets stuck in the lunch line, so they're waiting, and they get 30 seconds to eat lunch. And I remember that so much in school of frantically trying to eat because you don't have enough time. And so she kind of helps find her place by having this campaign for longer lunches. And so she finds her friends, all of that. This one I'm fine. It's still not, I'm not oh my gosh, this is the best series ever. But I would let my daughter read this one much more than the other. And a quick conversation around me talking about pre-reading books and what I let my kids read, what I don't. I am not a huge fan of censoring books because I think everybody can read things and learn something from it. However, lately in my own reading, I've been reading more biblical fiction and Christian fiction and things, and I have just found where my brain goes is so much better for me, and the things I'm pondering are so much more edifying to me than when I'm reading a bunch of dark stuff or a bunch of stuff I don't like STEAM. I typically pass it, whatever, but just where your brain goes based on what's coming in, I feel is so interesting to see. And my kids are still young enough that there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had, and I just really want especially as we're like coming into behavior things, because they're 6, 4, and almost 2. And so we're having a lot of like changes and attitudes and things that are coming up that haven't come up before. And when you see that justified and like, you know, normalized in a book, it seems like it gets worse. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of censoring books for older kids, but for my younger kids, I just see direct correlations between what they take in and what comes out. And so that's kind of what we're doing. But then we have PAWS, Gabby Gets It Together. This is a graphic novel, a middle grade graphic novel about 3 girls who decide to start the pretty awesome walkers or something like that. I can't remember what PAWS stands for, but they all 3 want pets and love animals, but they can't have them for various reasons. One has a mom with an allergy. Like, they've just all got different reasons why they can't have a pet. So they decide to start a dog walking business. And you guys, how many books have I read lately with this trope? I don't know, but this one was really cute. There's one girl, this one, who's really into sports. And so she misses a lot of the like meetings and walkings and stuff because she's playing sports. This one gets kind of like tempted by the money and kind of forgets their why. And then this one is like resentful. She's Gabby, gets resentful because she's the only one doing it for the reason that they originally planned. And so it was really good friendship dynamics, as well as like figuring out, your limits and how to only bite off what you can chew and all of that. And this is cute. This is a series that I'm going to continue on with. I'm more excited to hand this one to my daughters than the Ellie McDoodle series, but because there's one use of OMG where it's spelled out, and I loathe that. And that it's only once, and I wish it wasn't in here because it adds nothing. But otherwise, this was really cute. Then last we have Hooray for Anna Hibiscus. So I've talked about Anna Hibiscus before. We love this series. It is about a young Nigerian girl who, her dad is Nigerian, her mom is Canadian. They live in Nigeria, and it is kind of short stories just about her life. And each one has like a good morale kind of lesson to the story. So this is the second in the series, but you can read them in any order, really. She does live with her extended family, her grandparents, her aunts, her uncles, her cousins, all that kind of stuff. And so in the first story, she gets the opportunity to go sing for a visiting president, and she faces stage fright and all of that. In another one, she is not wanting her hair done. So once a week, the aunties do her hair, and she doesn't like all the time it takes. And so she has a week without it done and kind of learns that. In another, she goes with her aunt and uncle to the other side of the city and sees the poverty there and realizes kind of how blessed she is. And then, let's see, what is the fourth story? I am talking about them out of order, but let's see, your hair. Oh, and then in one, they get a generator because there's frequent power outages in their village in Nigeria. So they get a generator. So when those power outages happen, they can still have lights. And they realize that sometimes like the blessing of power outage is slow storytelling, all that kind of stuff. And maybe the generator is not the greatest idea. So I love these books. I would love to own them. They're so good. So I would highly recommend. Now let's get into the adult books. So we have 2 that are new releases that I'm going to talk really briefly about because I vlogged June new releases. So the first one is Nice Work, Nora, November by Julia London. This one was a cute story about this girl who has a near-death experience, kind of. She is surfing and goes underwater and is underwater for a long time, so she actually dies. And then they revive her, and she has like a reverse bucket list. She was completely living life for other people. Her parents, the family are lawyers, and so she became a lawyer just to please them. She hates law. There's just a lot of things she's doing for other people. And so she creates this reverse bucket list to live for herself. I really liked it. There's a romance too, because she was a part of like 2 years ago or something, she was a part of a gas station holdup. And so she was like a hostage with this guy, and they really hit it off. And then for reasons, neither of them contacted each other. And now it's like 2 years later, and she can't remember anything, like his name, she doesn't have his number, all that. And so she's trying to find him. And then we also get his perspective. So I liked it. This one went really wide and not very deep. There's a lot of things touched on, such as mental health, end of life, family expectations. All these things were touched on. Gardening, like because she saw her grandfather when she was dead, and regrets some of the ways she left that relationship. And both the male and female get involved in gardening for different reasons. Senior citizen club, like there's a lot going on in this book, and I wish it would have been pared down just a little bit, because I felt like the memorability, like the sticking factor wasn't there because it was so wide, but still good. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to talk much about it, and there's a long rant. So that was a good one. And then we have Cole and Laila Are Just Friends by Bethany Turner. This one is not listed as part of a series, and it definitely is. It's a second in a series, but the only reason, like, they're companion books, but in the first book you learn about Bryn and Sebastian. I have not read the first book, but the second book is about Cole and Laila. They've been best friends since they were 10 years old. Now they're both on the verge of 40. And they're best friends, and he operates his grandfather's restaurant. She works in there as a waitress. They're just best friends. They're each other's everything. And then the grandfather dies, and we find out that he has sold the restaurant. So Cole is really upset, betrayed, because he thought he was going to inherit the restaurant because he's been running it for so long, and he didn't. And so he's like, you know what? I got to get out of town. They live in this small Colorado town, and he's like, he gets this offer to work in Brooklyn, New York. And so most of the book takes place in New York, and he's going, I guess, to like scout out the job. However, the majority of the book is Cole and Laila exploring Manhattan because Bryn and Sebastian have a house there. I guess there's some sort of celebrity. I don't know. We don't really get any of Bryn and Sebastian's story, and I feel like that could have really helped. Just like attachment. But anyway, so they're in New York, and they figure out that maybe they have feelings for each other and whatever. I thought the characters were very naive, especially for being almost 40. And the whole like switch from friends to lovers was like, okay, so in 30 some odd years of friendship, this has never happened. Like, that's a little cheesy, a little convenient. The ending was very convenient, but it was still a cute ride. So there's that. Those two, like I said, I'll link the video down below of me vlogging it, and those are my thoughts. Then I read Your Roots Are Showing by Elise Chidley, I think is her name. Chidley, yeah. So this is a book that I did a try a chapter tag of a long time ago, and I loved the first chapter. It is about this woman who, her and her husband are getting divorced because she wrote this email kind of venting about him and accidentally sent it to him instead of to her sister, who she intended to. And he's like, okay, I want a divorce, whatever. So they're in the process of getting divorced. She's really like, oh my gosh, because we have all said or done things that are just out of frustration, and it's like, goodness gracious. But anyway, so she has two little kids. They're twins that are like 3 years old. She buys this house that is just really dilapidated, really run down. It's a fixer-upper in a rural area. And so she goes there with her kids, and she's just trying to figure it out, trying to put her life back together. And I loved the beginning because her kids go missing, like there's some tension. I thought this would be strictly a women's fiction, and it is. I would say this is women's fiction. However, there's a romance with like a gardener that comes into play. There's her best friend is in the same area, and so they both, like, her best friend's a big runner and tries to get her into running. There's a lot of like fat phobia and weight talk in this that I really didn't appreciate. And then the romance part is awful. Like, I wish it wasn't in here because there's the romance with the gardener thing, and the way that ends up is awful, and the way the book ends up is awful. Like, I was really upset. Really did not like the ending, but it was a decent journey. I read this physically, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough. So if you like women starting over stories, moms trying to reinvent themselves, all that, there's, like I said, a little bit of fat phobia, a little bit of weight stigma going on in this. And for me, a really unsatisfying ending, but maybe you'll think different. Then we have The How of Happiness, a new approach to getting the life you want by this author. And this is one that's been on my shelf forever. I don't know why I haven't picked it up, but this is just what you kind of think, like different ways to be happy. And I don't know if this just kind of was the wrong time for me, because generally I'm a pretty happy person. Life is pretty good. I feel pretty happy. And so I didn't really find much. This says this much happiness up to 40% is within your power to change. So she talks about like the genetic predisposition of kind of positivity and negativity, as well as the parts you can change and how to change them. And like I said, this was fine. It just didn't really add much to my life. And so, yeah, just okay. And then last we have another in this Lineage of Grace series. I read the story of Ruth, and I love the story of Ruth. It's one that I'm very familiar with. My daughter's middle name is Ruth. I love the story so much. This is biblical fiction. So she takes this series, or this bind up, is 5 different women from the Bible as they lead up to Jesus and kind of their stories. This one, if you know the story of Ruth, I'm not going to tell it all now, but this follows more of Naomi, which is her mother-in-law, and my complaint about it is that we don't get enough Ruth. We get Naomi's perspective for a while, we get Boaz's perspective for a while, but we don't get enough Ruth. However, this definitely made me love Ruth as much as I always have, and I feel like it was done pretty well, and really added some context, and not added context, but really brought to life context. So if you have not read the story of Ruth, obviously I would suggest reading her story. It's a short book in the Bible. It doesn't take long to read. Read the actual story and then read this, because I feel like it really brought to life like the internal struggles of what was going on at the time and how it all worked out. So really enjoyed that. I'm loving this. I have, I think, one more story to read maybe. I'm reading them all cattywampus out of order just as they come in on my library holds. But anyway, that's it. So that is everything that I read this week. I don't know how, like I used to do these every couple weeks. I used to do them much quicker than I do this now, but I love being able to talk about these with you guys. So let me know how you're liking the weekly. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if I inspired you to pick any up. Overall, it was a pretty good week. So we will see you next week.